Hi everyone, it's Sharon here, and I'd like to share with you two stories from my life. And one is about shame and guilt, and one is about judgment. And the two stories are about 15 years apart. So one happened about 15 years ago, the second story happened just about a month or so ago. And I don't know why I feel the need to share this, but it feels right, so off I go. So the first story is that I was working in fashion still, so about 15, 16 years ago. And I used to commute into work, like most people working in London, on the tube. And if you know the London Underground, you will know that there's lots of corridors and stairs, and then often just before you get to a platform you go down a flight of stairs, and if you go left you go to the platform that goes one way, and if you go right you go to the platform that goes the other way. A very common experience. And sometimes there would be buskers at the bottom of the stairs, and sometimes there would be people begging at the bottom of the stairs, but it was usually buskers if anybody. But then one day I turn the corner, get to the top of the staircase, and I see a man at the bottom. And he is pretty disfigured. His skin was very smooth, almost like it had been burnt. He had very little features in his face. I didn't know if it was an illness or whether it actually looked like he'd been in a horrific fire. And he was asking for some money at the bottom of the stairs. And if you know London Underground, there's a lot of people, we're all commuting, everyone is going very fast, we're kind of moving as a very fast moving object down the stairs. So I only had a few minutes to decide to give this person some money. So I reach into my pocket, fumble around, get some coins out, but then as I get closer to, I'm finding it hard to say this, so as I got closer to the man at the bottom of the stairs, I suddenly realised that he didn't have any hands. What he had was stubs, so he didn't actually have any hands. And I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, and I just thought to myself, I don't know how I'm going to give him the money if he doesn't have any hands. And so it was a split-second choice. I put the money back into my pocket and I carried on onto the platform. As the train came, I got on, and in that moment of getting onto that train, I had the deepest shame. And trust me when I say it was deep shame. And it was starting to tear me apart immediately. I felt so ashamed that I had given up the opportunity to be charitable for the sake of social embarrassment. Because I didn't know how to give him the money, I didn't give him the money. And this was a person I considered to be in need, and my own social embarrassment meant that I didn't give him the money. And it started to tear me up inside immediately. And I went into work the next day, and I was talking to my assistant. Now, in fashion, there are some lovely people in fashion, but the majority of people are quite selfish, and the industry wants you to be selfish. It wants you to be self-centered, and it kind of teaches young girls to be selfish, to not be nice, to be a bit manipulative to get what they want. And so I was quite used to having moral conversations with my younger assistants. I'd kind of taken it upon myself in my role as an older person. I was only in my 30s, to try and instill in my younger assistants some kindness and some compassion. You know, literally I've been in job reviews, work reviews, and I've been told to not be nice. That was my only constructive criticism that I needed to work on, was to be less nice. So I know what the industry was like, and I was always trying to encourage the younger staff members to be nicer, at least more compassionate, at least. So I went into work, and I was feeling deep guilt and deep shame about this, and I just needed to express it. So I mentioned it to my assistant, and she said, "Oh, I saw this person at the bottom of the stairs, and I wasn't going to give them any money, so I don't see why you're so cut up about it." Genuinely, she thought, "Why are you even thinking about it? I saw that person and I didn't want to give them any money." And I said, why didn't you want to give them any money? And she said, well, and I can't remember what she said exactly, but it was something along the lines of, what do I care? Why should I give them any money? They're probably, and then she made up a story in her own mind to justify why she wouldn't give them any money. And she said, don't worry about it. I said, yeah, but, you're fully able. You've got a nice job. This person is clearly suffering. This person was clearly suffering physically, maybe even emotionally, and they're begging. So they're obviously in a position where they need it. So why could you not offer it? And she said, well, it's not for me to offer it. And this conversation went on for a while. And so I said, well, how much money do you have in your purse right now? Do you know how much you have in your purse right now? And she said, no. And I said, so if you lost £1 out of a hole in your purse right now, you wouldn't notice it? And she said, no. And I said, well, then why didn't you just give that £1 to someone in need? And I'll be honest, I don't know if this had any impact on her, but I felt like maybe one day when she comes across somebody in need, this conversation that we had may resurface, and she might remember me saying, well, if you wouldn't have missed it, why can't you give it to somebody in need? So we had this whole conversation, and I wasn't feeling any better. So I was quite a fledgling on the spiritual path back then, and I certainly didn't pray back then. I still don't really pray. I'm more into co-creation than I am about praying. And this is the only time I have truly prayed. And I just spent the next few days just saying to the universe, give me, I'm going to cry, give me another chance. Give me another chance. I beg of you, give me another chance. Because I cannot live with this on my conscience. I can't live with it on my conscience. I have to be given another chance to do the right thing. So every day for quite a few days, I was imploring the universe, give me another chance, give me another chance, please give me another chance. I can't live with this, give me another chance. And each day there was no man at the bottom of the stairs. I'd never seen this man before, by the way, and I never saw them again after these incidents. And then it was on like the 5th day, and I come down the stairs and he's there again. And I was like, thank you, universe, thank you. And he, I got my money out, and went down the stairs, and then I thought, right, well, I still don't know how to give this man some money. So I kind of held my hand up to show that I had some money in my hand, and that I was going to try and give it to him. And that's when he took his arm and he opened his pocket wider so I could put the money directly into his pocket. And I put the money into his pocket. And I was so relieved. I can't begin to tell you. I was so relieved. To this day, I never saw this man again. To this day, I almost feel like he was put into my path to teach me this lesson. And I was so relieved. I was so relieved by this. And it taught me to, it taught me very clearly the power of shame and guilt. And I felt, I never want to feel this way ever again. I never want to feel this way ever again. I don't want to be on my deathbed and have this be the memories that I have. And I knew that if I didn't have another chance, if the universe hadn't given me another chance, it would be a regret in my life. I take these things really seriously. You know, you might have gathered that. This sort of stuff really, really matters to me, that I act in a way that's in integrity with who I am. And not giving him the money the first time was out of integrity with me. And that's not who I am. And that's why it hurt so badly when I made that split-second decision to turn away and not give money. And it wasn't about the money. It was about me allowing societal embarrassment to change who I was, or to distort who I was. And so I felt really, it taught me that day that I didn't want to have that ever happen again, and that if I was going to live my life and be able to die peacefully, then I needed to stay in integrity with myself. So that was story number 1. And then, sorry, I got a bit of a snotty nose because I've been a bit emotional. And then story number 2 is about judgment. I might as well carry on. Now I started, I might as well carry on in the same video. And it only happened about a month or so ago. So if you know me and my work, I am always talking about the practice of non-judgment. And I've been practicing non-judgment for quite a few years now. Only maybe about 3 or 4. Whereby I actively try not to judge. I'm not going to say I'm perfect at this, but I definitely do try. I see the benefits of non-judgment, and I'm not a particularly judgy person. I'm quite an opinionated person when it comes to politics and things, but I'm not actually that judgy of other people on an everyday basis. And about a month or so ago, I was in a kind of like a Whole Foods kind of shop. It was an organic, expensive kind of Whole Foodsy type shop. And I decided just to buy some bread. And there was only one person ahead of me in the queue. And this person was bent over. It was a woman. She was bent over. And she was exposing quite a lot of her body. So you can visibly see quite a lot of her naked skin. And she was bent over and she was fumbling in a bag. I didn't take much notice of her initially. But I think maybe because my brain was a bit like idle. My mind was a bit idle. And I kind of looked over at her and, I sort of took in what she was wearing. I took in sort of the position she was standing in, where she was exposing lots of her body. And I almost went to judge. Almost. And as she sort of was turned and was fumbling, I saw that she had something with her physically that triggered some shame within me. And it's some past shame where we share, if you like, a physical characteristic. And although I don't feel shame around that anymore, or I've certainly dealt with that, seeing it in such a strong visual way suddenly triggered some shame within me. And I wanted to judge her. I wanted to judge her for not dealing with that physical condition, if you like, and it being very visible. But I stopped myself. I did. I stopped myself. And I went, I realised that this woman is triggering me, and I realised that I want to judge her, but I'm refusing. I'm not going to. You know, this is my practice. I don't want to judge people. So all of this happened in the space of about a minute. She was still fumbling into her bag to get something. And I realised that I'd wanted to judge, but I'd stopped myself. And then as she sort of stopped fumbling in her bag and she stood upright and she started to get some coins out of her purse, I realised that she may have learning disabilities. And she was actually speaking to the staff member very sweetly, very politely, and that was when I said to myself, thank God I didn't judge this person. Thank God I didn't judge this person. It would have been so wrong to have judged this person. And in that moment of not judging, and again, it's that same feeling of relief that I had, that I hadn't done something out of integrity with myself this time. I had this sense of, I looked at her and it was like this amazing wave of awe and respect for this human being came over me. And this was a woman who had learning difficulties, or seemed to have learning difficulties, and she was independently living. She was in a whole food shop. She was making healthy choices for herself as to what she was eating, and she was just living her life. And how I had absolutely no reason to judge this person. If anything, there was just deep, deep admiration. And that deep respect and admiration for this woman was so overwhelming. It flooded every part of me. And that's when I went, thank God. Thank God I didn't judge. Because that would have been another regret of my life. That would have been something that I would have taken to my grave, and I wouldn't have been able to take back. And I didn't say anything to my husband. I carried on my day, and then about a week or so later, I kind of realised what an important part this one incident had on my life yet again. These two seemingly small moments are actually deeply impactful for me, because I have committed to a path of non-judgment, and I'm not a particularly judgy person. If I'd known someone had learning difficulties, I would absolutely never have judged them in the first place. But because I didn't know, a part of my mind, and because it was triggered by my own shame, wanted to feel better about myself, and it wanted to judge, which is what the ego mind does. It wants to judge so it can feel better about itself. It says, I'm not that. Look over that person over there. They're that. And isn't that terrible? That's part of the shadow work. And I've done the shadow work. So I was well aware of this. And I felt like at least I caught myself before I did it. And I'm glad I did. But more importantly, if I had judged, I would have missed the gift. And the gift was the way I felt when the respect and the deep admiration for this human being came forth. It came forth in such a wave of euphoria. And it's just like, wow, this person is amazing. This person is amazing. You know, and I would have missed that feeling. I would have lost that feeling. But I was pleased because I actually got that experience of that appreciation and respect for that other human being that I would have missed if I had judged them. And so these two experiences, 15 years apart, may seem quite trivial to most people. They might think, gosh, why did you remember that? And it's because when you do this work, you don't do it for any thanks. You don't do it for any applause. You don't do it, you don't act out of integrity with yourself for anybody else. It's not for anybody else. It's for yourself. It's for the betterment of you. It's for your experience of life. And I really felt like these stories wanted to be shared for some reason. And so I'm offering these stories as just as an example of how good life can be when we commit to the things we truly believe in that are important, and we're more of our true nature. The non-judgment is truer, is a more truer experience for me. Being charitable is true for me. So those are my two stories. I don't really have anything else really to add to that. I'm offering them for no other reason that if they felt like they wanted to be shared, because they had a deep impact on me, and they just wanted to be shared. So thank you for listening.